If you're starting a garden, one of the first things you're probably wondering is, what seeds should I grow to actually save on the grocery bill? It can get confusing out there, folks. So today I do have a list of the vegetables you should grow in your garden if you want to save money on your grocery bill. If it's not mentioned on the list, it's very likely that it's not going to save you money and you should just buy it from the grocery store. Just a heads up. The reason why a fruit or vegetable may cost more to grow versus just buying at a grocery store comes down to factors like, does it have to be started inside? How much lighting does it need? What kind of trays does it need? What kind of fertilizer does it need? Does it need to be covered or pesticides added, biological or organic or synthetic? That sort of thing. What I took into consideration is space, yield, ease of harvest, and just ease of growing. Could you grow these with absolute zero fertilizer input? Could you grow these with absolute zero fungicide or pesticide or anything input? And the answer to that is yes. First up is beans. Now, beans that are fresh eat beans, meaning string beans that you're going to can or freeze, are much cheaper to grow. If you were to let these set seed and you were just getting the raw bean itself, no, the answer to that is no. Dried bean, absolutely not, but fresh bean, yes. The reason for this is particularly with bush beans, if we're continually harvesting from our crop, we get more and more flowers and more harvest. That means if we get 2, 3, 4 rounds of harvest off that plant, we can end up with bags and bags and bags of produce. Trust me, I've done this. So string beans, bush string beans in particular, get my vote for a plant that you could definitely grow for less. Fertilizer inputs next to nothing. Disease and pest issues, pretty much zero. If you did not know, beans nitrogen fix, they fix their own fertilizer for the most part. So give these a shot. Next one is beets. So beets is one of those really cheap, inexpensive, quick turnaround time. You can start harvesting beets after 30 days in your garden, meaning you can immediately have a food source. And if you were to leave them, you just get a bigger food source. They freeze, they can, they pickle with absolute perfection. And ultimately speaking, they are much cheaper to grow than they are to buy. If you were to buy a jar of beets, it can be anywhere from $5 to $10 depending on where you are, and you get maybe a handful of beets in that jar. The second thing is that the beets that are fresh in the grocery store aisle, I've again seen these at, $5 for 4 beets. That is crazy. Get the seed packets. The seed packet's going to cost you a total of probably $2.50. And inside of that, because these are compound seeds, meaning there's more than 1 beet per seed, we tend to see an entire pack more than likely feed your entire family for fresh eats and preserves for an entire year for $2.50. They do not have any particular disease or pest problems, meaning pesticide and chemical and having to diagnose and research and figure out what's going on is next to zero. And also fertilizer wise, they don't need much. They'll do just fine in your regular old mineral soil, containers, you name it. So beets definitely makes the list. Next up is peppers, in particular hot peppers and colored peppers. The only one that wouldn't make this list would be green bell peppers. I find green bell peppers to be very inexpensive at the store, but hot peppers and colored bell peppers, so the yellows, the reds, the oranges, those ones would be best to plant. Now, you don't have to seed start these. You could just buy these as seed starts in the grocery store or in our grocery stores in Canada anyway sell seeds. Hardware store, nursery, you name it. They're already ready to go. So don't invest in lighting and that sort of thing. Just go purchase them. They're pretty cheap. You can get a 6-pack of them for like $2, particularly towards the end of the season. And these yield high if you plant them in 5-gallon pail buckets and or containers. I would not put these in the ground. It tends to restrict the volume of peppers you get. I also would not top said peppers. I did a whole video on why topping peppers does not benefit you in any way. And if you want to know how to search any of my videos, I'll kind of put a little plug here as to how you would search a video that I've made on a specific topic, and that'll help you kind of navigate stuff quickly and effectively. But ultimately speaking, peppers are one that can get really expensive. And you're probably thinking, how is a habanero or a jalapeno or a chili or whatever pepper going to yield me awesome results? I don't understand what you mean. If you've ever had a pepper plant, you'd be shocked by how many peppers you can get off that one plant. Jalapeno plants can literally be hanging with fruit. And what I do is I pickle my jalapenos for being able to be used in various different formats and cooking styles. But yeah, pepper plants, you will save a ton of cash. Jalapenos in particular, they produce like crazy. If you want something that produces like crazy and has the same flavor and texture, sweetness as that of a bell pepper, which a bell pepper plant doesn't produce as well, try Hungarian wax peppers. These yellow wax peppers plants are prolific in making peppers, and the peppers themselves are like a sweet, totally normal tasting pepper.
Some definite honorable mentions that I forgot are Swiss chard, rhubarb, any sort of herb, thyme, basil, rosemary, you name it. And lastly, anything that helps you make a homemade tea. These are much more flavorful when you grow them on your own, and they're very inexpensive to do so.
Next up is carrots. So carrots can be one of those ones where it depends on where you are. But if you want carrots, try growing these on your own. They store for ages. So overplant and just store them in your fridge. They will last you until next spring. Or until your carrots are ready to be harvested. I can promise you that. But ultimately speaking, they're more flavorful. The flavor profile is totally different when you grow them in your own home. And then they also yield-wise are very, very high. That would be the reason why I would put the money or the stress into trying to grow your own carrots. Keep in mind that these carrots, if the soil is not tilled and cared for appropriately if it's not fluffy. If the soil's not fluffy, we tend to see really poor growth habits with our carrots. So if you have compacted soil, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I would probably rototill it. Maybe talk to me all about it. You can follow me on Instagram, just DM me and say, hey, this is what my soil looks like. What do I do? And I'll give you a recommendation. You might need to till once. Just even once can make a big difference for making sure you get nice, full, long carrots. So something to consider, definitely worth the money. Next up is cucumbers. So cucumbers, if you did not know, are incredibly prolific if you get the right ones. So you can get female only flowering cucumbers. I'll put the name. And these will yield higher than that of your conventionals. These seeds themselves are a little bit more expensive, but if we're looking at space and whatever, these are maybe the route you want to go. The other option would be to get earlies or like early producers, late producers, you name it. I would just always, if you want to save money, I would go for the pickled cucumber varieties. Fresh eat those pickled cucumber varieties and then obviously harvest the later ones. If you don't like the flavor of garden cucumbers, you're thinking to yourself, okay, yeah, maybe they're cheaper to grow, but the taste of the homegrown ones, bitter AF. Get the burpless. Burpless has no reference. Well, it has reference to there's a chemical that makes people burp. I have a whole video on it. Get the burpless. The burpless will not have that intense flavor that you do not like, that bitter flavor. The bitter flavor is caused by high heat and poor watering. The burpless don't care. They don't care about heat. They don't care about your watering technique, and they'll get you through the tasty cucumber regardless of your watering habits or the climate that you live in. Next up is summer squash and winter squash. To be honest, both of these are highly prolific plants. Zucchini, my goodness, that plant is the plant that keeps on giving. Patty pan squash is another one. A plant that just does not quit giving. It just keeps giving. So that would be the next one. Winter squash wise, spaghetti, acorns, butternuts, they're way cheaper to grow. That one plant produces pounds of vegetables. Literally, if you're questioning it, someone down below, please comment, one of the loyal subs, the Gick crew, they'll convince you just to plant one of them. You'll be blown away. The amount of fruit you can get off that thing is insane. And butternut squash, where I am, winter squash in general, is so freaking expensive. It's crazy. No, do it. And they store without you freezing. Go do it. Squash, absolutely. Winter squash, winter, summer, you name it, do it. The last one is tomatoes. So you need the sun for this, obviously. You can start these from seed, obviously, which would up take the cost of it. You could also get seed starts. Canadian Tire, for example, sells seed starts for next to nothing. Regardless, tomatoes, you can freeze them to make them into pasta sauces, paste, fresh eats, you name it. And when we take into consideration the preservation that we can do with it, we tend to see the best results. So absolutely 100% tomatoes. Give it a shot. That is kind of one of those ones where it's like awkward as to whether or not it's saving. It wouldn't be savings if you only do fresh eat tomatoes. It is savings if you choose to preserve these long term. The exception of that would be actually cherry tomatoes. So cherry tomatoes, fresh eats, or for fresh eats in particular, you're going to see really good cost savings because tumblers or there's so many varieties and so many of them are way tastier than the grocery store brands. You can get just everyday loads, containers full of these cherry tomatoes. Definitely something to consider. So those are my crops for seeds. You should start in your garden, either purchasing from the nursery or planting direct sown seeds outdoors. That will most definitely save you money compared to that of the grocery store prices. Thanks for watching. Comment down below what fruits and vegetables you think save you money compared to the grocery store, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.